Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Rama Hare वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। हरे कृष्णा, दिस इज Shama Supriya Devi Dasi from Houston, welcoming all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. I thank all the devotees for joining this session and giving your very sweet association this morning. And I sincerely ask for forgiveness for stopping your sincere and ecstatic chanting. And now we will move to our next part of our session, that is Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta session. Before that, can I know who are all joining this morning?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. This is Preeti Vilasani Devidasi from California.
Hare Krishna, Preeti Vilasani Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining sessions and giving your very sweet association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shama Gauri Devidasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shama Gauri Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your very sweet association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shama Supriya Mataji. This is Kaumudiki Dasi from Baltimore. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, and all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kamaliki Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your very wonderful association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Go ahead, Mataji.
Go ahead, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Very beautiful Radha Krishna deities.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Neetu from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna, Neetu Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your very sweet association this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga and all assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashamati Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your very wonderful association each and every day, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It is Sam Supriya. Go ahead, Mataji.
Oh, only Hare Krishna I was telling.
Hare Krishna, it is Sam Supriya Mataji. Dandavad Pranam to you and all respected Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the sessions and giving your very wonderful association, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, anybody on the call would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Shashidhar John from Texas.
Hare Krishna, Shishidhar Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining the sessions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Sudhir from Virginia. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining the sessions and giving your very sweet association this morning. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Anybody would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Bala.
Hare Krishna, Balabanda. Thank you so much for joining the sessions and giving your very sweet association this morning.
Dandavat Pranam Bal Vrinda and all gopis. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. I welcome all the devotees to our Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call of our Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta sessions. And today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Bala Prabhu to give the summary of Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta Chapter 37. So before handing over, I would like to read the Srila Prabhupada's quote for the day. So Srila Prabhupada saying, a leader must be peaceful, self-controlled, austere, pure, tolerant, honest, wise, learned, and religious. So Hare Krishna Balavanda Prabhu. Sorry, Hare Krishna Balachandra Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for joining the sessions and giving your very valuable association and time. I hand over the call to you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. I would like to give a brief introduction about Balachandra Prabhu. It's my great fortune and honor to be introducing Balachandra Prabhu to all of you on Bhakti Sangha. By now you must have guessed, yes, he is one of the core organizers, I would say, along with Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, who runs the show on Bhakti Sangha regularly. Balachandra Prabhu got PhD in medicinal chemistry, and he's currently working as a research scientist in drug discovery at Texas A&M University. He's also the faculty advisor for Bhakti Yoga Club at the Texas A&M University since 2017. Prabhuji organizes Srimad Bhagavatam reading every Thursday. Besides that, he has done several introduction services on Bhakti Sangha, and he's also participated in reading the glories of Ekadashi too. So Balachandra Prabhu is none other than the better half of Her Grace Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, and it's so wonderful that the entire family serves Bhakti Sangha from early morning to late night each and every single day. So we are very honored to have you on the call, Prabhu. Please grace us with your association, and we look forward to hearing more and more from you on a regular basis. So this will be Prabhu's first introductory class on Bhakti Sangha, and thank you so much, Prabhu, for honoring our request. You can now take over. Hare
Hari Bol, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji, for the introduction. First of all, I would like to thank you, P.T. Lasmi Mataji and Kirtana Mataji, for giving me this opportunity to present about the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta. And also I thank Bhakti Sangha Japa Group for giving me this opportunity. Please bless me so that I can speak and purify myself and improve in my Krishna conscious practice. I would like to start the session with Guru Vandana. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Vandamoi Savadana Mate Yahara Prasade Bai Ibhavatori Ajai Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Ate Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Kori Bo Akya Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Uttama Gati Je prasade pure sarva asha चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जते वेद गए जहरा चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनार बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवना आहा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पद छाया एबे जसा गोषु त्रिभुवना प्रभुपाद पतित पावना गुरुदेव लोयल शरणा जय प्रभुपादा 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 जय प्रभुपादा गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी. Let's do the introduction prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Tadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vishamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So what does it mean to love someone? When you say that you love someone, what does that mean? In Krishna consciousness, we understand that love means service. You cannot say you love someone just because you find them to be attractive or pleasing to you, to your senses. That's not really love. That's only attraction. Attraction comes and goes. That's the nature of it. At one point, we will be attracted to one person, later on, someone else. So that doesn't indicate that we love them, because it's only based on if they are pleasing to our mind and senses at some particular point in time. Love means service. If you genuinely love someone, it means you want to or willing to do something for them. Giving them something, make a sacrifice of a personal nature for them, help them, assist them. I wanted to show my love to Guru and Krishna by glorifying Srila Prabhupada. Our success in Krishna consciousness is only possible if one satisfies and glorifies previous acharyas. As a grand disciple of Srila Prabhupada, we have to know about him. Otherwise, we are not called as ISKCON devotees. So I'm trying to know more about Srila Prabhupada by presenting this chapter. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta reading, chapter 7, the land is yours. Chapter 37, the land is yours. to the Calcutta March in the year 1971. It was midnight. Srila Prabhupada sat on a pillow behind his low desk. His light, the only one in the building. All the other devotees were in bed. On the desk before him rested the dictating machine and a volume of Srimad Bhagavatam with Bengali commentary. A small frame picture of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, sat between two small vases of roses and asters. On the floor beyond the desk was the broad mat covered with white cotton fabric, where a few hours before devotees and guests had sat. We can see here that Srila Prabhupada sitting next to his spiritual master always. It shows how much he loves and serves his Guru Maharaj. We can also see that everyone was sleeping, but Srila Prabhupada was yet awake. But now he is alone. Although usually he retired at 10, rising 3 or 4 hours later to translate, tonight he had not rested and his Bhagavatam lay closed, his dictating machine covered. Oh, look at that. Srila Prabhupada is not translating or dictating, but he is awake. Why is that so? Let's see now. He sent two of his disciples, Tamal Krishna and Balimardana, to purchase land in Mayapur. 6 days had passed, however, and still they had neither returned nor sent a word. He told them not to return until they had completed the transaction, but 6 days was more than enough time. He was anxious, thinking constantly of his two disciples. Now we know that why Prabhupada is anxious to know what is happening, what is the news from his two disciples about the land, and that's why he is not sleeping and he is awake. Let's see what's happening there. A breeze arrived carrying the fragrance of neem trees through the open window. The night was becoming cool and Prabhupada wore a light chandra around his shoulders. Absorbed in thought, leaning against the white bolster pillow, he paid little attention to the familiar sights in his room. A clay jug with drinking water sat beside him and a potted tulsi plant sat upon a small wooden pedestal. The electricity of most of the day and night was now on, and moths and other insects hovered around the bare bulb overhead. A lizard patrolled the ceiling, occasionally darting forward near the light to capture an insect. Why were Tamal Krishna and Balimardana taking so long? It had been more than just a wait of 6 days. He had been trying to obtain land in Mayapur for years, and this time the prospects had been excellent. He had clearly instructed Tamal Krishna and Balimardana, and by now they should have returned. The delay could mean a complication or even a danger. Srila Prabhupada is always thinking about how to expand the movement and how to serve his Guru Maharaj. Like a father, he is so caring about his disciples that whether they are in any danger. The land that they were trying for was a 9 bigha plot on Bhaktisiddhanta Road. Less than a mile from the birthsite of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Sikh brothers, Muslim farmers who owned the plot, had been asking a high price. Only recently had a Calcutta lawyer familiar with Navadvipam been able to seriously negotiate a fair price. The Sikh brothers had settled for 14,500 rupees, and Prabhupada had authorized withdrawal of the funds from his bank in Krishnanagar. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Balimardana Prabhu had left for Mayapur while Prabhupada had remained in Calcutta, carrying on with his affairs, but thinking often about the activities of his disciples in Mayapur. Their mission was very important to him, and he kept them in his mind, personally blessing them. Prabhupada wanted an ISKCON center in Mayapur. It was a desire that had increased within him as his movement had increased throughout the years. He could easily visit or live in Mayapur, that was not a problem. But he needed a place for his disciples. His spiritual master had ordered him to preach in the West, and now with the success of his Krishna Consciousness Society, the Western Vaishnavas required a center in Mayapur where they could reside and worship and receive the immense benefit of the holy Dhamma. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had stressed the great importance of Mayapur, and some of his sannyasi disciples had temples there. Why shouldn't the International Society for Krishna Consciousness also be able to take shelter of Mayapur? Here, Prabhupada is mainly thinking about his disciples' shelter in Mayapur so that they can continue their spiritual practice in Mayapur and spread their movement. Since birth, Prabhupada had been aware of the significance of Lord Chaitanya and his Dhamma, Sri Mayapur. He had grown up in Calcutta where everyone knew of Lord Chaitanya. and because his father, Gaur Mohan De, had been a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya. From childhood, he had sung the Bengali songs of Gaur Nitai and their pastimes in the land of Gauda. He had imbibed deeply the teachings and pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, especially after meeting his spiritual master in the Calcutta in the year 1922. Why Prabhupada was more concerned about the land in Mayapur? Because it's the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We see that Prabhupada has loved to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from the childhood, like his father Gaur Mohan De. Srila Prabhupada's love toward Lord Chaitanya had increased more after he met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It shows the importance of spiritual master in our life. Once we get a spiritual master, our love for Krishna will increase. Lord Chaitanya had spent his 24 years in Mayapur and Navadvipa. Yet since his manifest pastimes there almost 500 years ago, the places of those pastimes had been obscured, the Lord's birthside lost, and his teachings confused and misused. Despite the disciplined line of pure devotees from Lord Chaitanya, not until the advent of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the father of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, did Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtana movement and pure teachings began to emerge. Bhaktivinoda Thakur published many books and preached to re-establish the intellectual, moral, and spiritual integrity of Chaitanya Vaishnavism. He researched and explored the land of Navadvipa, ascertaining the exact birthside of the Lord. Citing Vedic evidence, he established that many previous incarnations of Vishnu had enacted pastimes in Navadvipa. We are very grateful to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for bringing back the Lord Chaitanya's movement. Not only did Bhaktivinoda Thakur document Navadvipa's past glory, but he also foresaw its glorious future when a religion based on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya would emerge and spread throughout the world, and when European and American Vaishnavas would throng to Navadvipa to join their Bengali brothers in chanting Jaya Sachinandana. The time would come, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, when in the land of Navadvipa, on the plain of the Ganges, a magnificent temple would arise, proclaiming to the world the glories of Lord Chaitanya. All glories to Lord Chaitanya, the son of Sachi. Now we see that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prediction of building a magnificent temple, TOVP in Mayapur, coming true, where thousands of devotees can participate in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, and devotees coming from all over the world. So please donate to TOVP and participate in serving Srila Prabhupada's mission. All glories to Lord Chaitanya, the son of Sachi. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, carrying out the desires of his father and preceptor, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, had performed the Gaudiya Math for propagating the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the glories of Navadvipa Dhamma. He had induced a wealthy disciple to spend his fortune for erecting a temple at Lord Chaitanya's birthsite in Mayapur, and he had constructed a Kirtana hall commemorating the place of Lord Chaitanya's Kirtans. He had also constructed his own residence in Mayapur. He had built temples throughout India, 64 in total. But because he wanted the English-speaking world especially to take to Lord Chaitanya's movement, he had emphasized at first priority the publishing and distributing of Krishna-conscious literature. Srila Prabhupada, sitting in his room in Calcutta temple, shared the great vision of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Yet to enact this great vision, he had to take practical steps, and he was content to take them in most humble way. A devotee should not simply daydream, expecting Krishna to accomplish everything with miracles. We should work hard and leave the results to Krishna. Prabhupada, however, was not dreaming idly. Working for years alone in India, he had held his plan of going to West, and Krishna had at last filled that desire. In America, in whatever circumstances and with whatever small facility Krishna had provided, he had preached. And slowly, step by step, he had met with success, realizing his vision of a worldwide society of devotees. Always he had kept his greater vision in mind, as every step forward had given him deeper satisfaction and had brought him closer to fulfilling his mission. We see that Srila Prabhupada worked hard to fulfill his Guru Maharaj's desire. Now let's see a funny story about daydreaming which Prabhupada has narrated. There was a poor potter who dreamed of expanding his business and becoming fabulously rich. As the potter slept one night, he dreamed of how much land and how many houses he would have and of how he would have a beautiful wife. When the potter considered that perhaps the wife would quarrel with him, he became angry and said, if my wife fights with me, then I'll kick her. And kicking, he broke the only 2 pots in his stock and was reduced to nothing. Whether chanting or writing or reading or preaching, Prabhupada had been absorbed in his plans for spreading Krishna consciousness and fulfilling the dream of the past acharyas. Now he was anxious to complete the next step, and for this he was waiting up past midnight, meditating on his 2 disciples and their important mission. As Prabhupada sat, wrapped in thought, the only sounds were the usual sounds of the night, mice within the walls, a brahmachari snoring on the veranda, and in the distance, the night watchman making his rounds, his stick striking the streets. There were no cars, and only an occasional wooden rickshaw clattered along the potholed street. Prabhupada wondered if perhaps his boys had been robbed. Before sending them off, he had shown Tamal Krishna how to carry money around his waist in a makeshift cloth money belt. But it had been a great deal of money, and robberies were not uncommon around Navadvipa. Or perhaps there had been some other delay. Sometimes in land negotiations involving large sums of money, the court would require that a clerk should record the denomination and serial number of every note of the currency that is exchanged. Or perhaps the train had broken down. We see that Srila Prabhupada taught his disciples small things, just like parents teaches their kids, like how to carry money, how to be safe, how to be aware of strangers. Suddenly, Prabhupada heard of footsteps on the stairs. Someone opened the outer door and now walked along the veranda just outside. A soft knock. Yes, who is it? Prabhupada asked. Tamal Krishna entered and prostrated himself before Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada asked, what's the news? Tamal Krishna looked up triumphantly. The land is yours. Prabhupada leaned back with a sigh. All right, he said, now you can take rest. Prabhupada was very happy that his disciples made his wish come true for the progress of the Krishna conscious movement. Till now, we read about the March 1971 in Calcutta. Now we will see the August 1971 in London. Prabhupada had asked the Indian High Commissioner for the United Kingdom to petition Prime Minister Indira Gandhi to attend ISKCON's upcoming cornerstone laying ceremony in Mayapur. Writing to his disciples in India, he said if they could not get Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, to come, they should at least get the Governor of Bengal, Sri S.S. Dhawan. Srila Prabhupada was trying to get prominent political leader to the ceremony so that with this news, they can reach many people about the Krishna conscious movement. Prabhupada was meeting in London with several of his disciples experienced in architecture and design. He wanted them to draft plans for his Mayapur project. Naranarayana had built Rath Yatra carts and designed temple interiors. Ranchor has studied architecture, and Bhavananda had been a professional designer. But Prabhupada himself conceived the plans for the Mayapur buildings. He then told his 3-man committee to provide sketches and an architect's model. He would immediately begin raising funds and securing support in India for the project. To the devotees who heard Prabhupada's plans, this seemed the most ambitious ISKCON project ever. Finally, he announced one morning that the main temple in Mayapur should be more than 300 feet high. Mayapur's monsoon floods and sandy soil would create unique difficulties, he said, and the building would have to be built on a special foundation, a sort of floating raft. A civil engineer later confirmed this. Prabhupada described that entering the main hall in temple in Mayapur, a person would look up and see the planets situated just as Srimad Bhagavatam describes. The Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir and the Mayapur city would be ISKCON's world headquarters. And why such a fabulous architecture wonder exists in such an obscure part of the world? The answer Prabhupada explained was that Mayapur was actually not obscure. It seemed so only from the mundane perspective. To mundane vision, that which was central seemed remote. the soul and the next life seemed remote, while the body and immense sense gratification seemed central. By establishing the temple of human understanding in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada would be directing the materialistic world's attention back to the true center. Any sincere visitor would be charmed by the beauty of ISKCON's Mayapur project and would perceive that here indeed was the spiritual world. And the devotees living in Mayapur, by remaining constantly immersed in singing Hare Krishna Kirtana and discussing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, would be able to convince any intelligent visitor that the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were the highest truth. The devotees would explain the philosophy of the absolute truth, which would enable visitors to comprehend actual spiritual truth beyond sectarian religious dogma. Furthermore, the continuous Hare Krishna Kirtan and the blissful devotees engaged in a wide variety of services to Lord Krishna would demonstrate the Bhakti Yoga was the simplest and most direct process for meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. While staying in ISKCON's Mayapur city, a person would quickly become a devotee of the Lord and begin chanting and dancing in ecstasy. Srila Prabhupada was demonstrating how the world could be spiritualized by linking material things with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, through Bhakti Yoga. And why shouldn't such spiritual feats surpass the achievements of materialists? Whoever visits ISKCON Mayapur should immediately take up chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra and dancing. That is Srila Prabhupada's vision. We also see that when devotees visits Dham and comes back, their enthusiasm increases a lot. Prabhupada was sorry to learn that the Indian High Commissioner that the Prime Minister could not attend the corner store laying ceremony in Mayapur. Yet he took it as Krishna's desire. He said he would invite a prominent Vaishnava to officiate, or he might do it himself. On the whole, he wrote, it was Lord Chaitanya's desire that a Vaishnava shall lay down the corner store instead of asking some material man or woman to perform the holy work. Prabhupada thus relates anything that happens, it's Krishna's desire. The monsoons came and the Ganges spilled over her banks, flooding the entire ISKCON Mayapur property. Achyutananda Swami had built a strong bamboo hut where Prabhupada was soon to stay. But the waters rose until Achyutananda Swami had to live in a bamboo rafters. He wrote Prabhupada that had it not been for Bhaktisiddhanta Road, the damage would have been extensive. Prabhupada replied, the elevated road that runs before Krishna's property and the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, serving as a dike against the Ganges. Yes, we were saved by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Road. We shall always expect to be saved by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. Always pray to His lotus feet. Whatever success we have had in preaching Lord Chaitanya's mission all over the world is only due to His mercy. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Ki Jai. Whatever success that we may get it is from Guru and Krishna's mercy. Now we will discuss about Srila Prabhupada's next visit to New Delhi, that is November 10th, 1971. Prabhupada had arrived from Calcutta just in time for the 10-day ISKCON Pandal festival, beginning the next day. One of the devotees mentioned how fitting it had been that the mayor of New Delhi, Mr. Hansraj Gupta, had greeted Prabhupada at the airport. Prabhupada smiled. In his speech before Mayor Gupta and a gathering at the airport, Prabhupada had explained India's duty of performing welfare work for the rest of the world. He had also described how, at the age of 25, he had met his Guru Maharaj and had then received the order to carry Lord Chaitanya's message to the English-speaking world. Confined to a suite with an adjoining veranda overlooking a garden, Prabhupada had resigned himself to a more limited sphere of activity. Still, each morning after breakfast, he had conducted a dialogue with Shyamasundara about certain leading Western philosophers. Shyamasundara would present a particular philosophy and Prabhupada would discuss it in light of the Vedic view. Then, with only one day left before the end of the 10-day quarantine period, the inoculation card had arrived. Prabhupada had been released. Immediately he left for Calcutta and a series of kirtana and lecture programs at Deshapriya Park. He had stayed in Calcutta 2.5 weeks, appreciating the location of the ISKCON temple at Albert Road in the heart of what once had been the Sahib or European section. Now I'm bringing the Sahibs back to the Sahib quarter. Prabhupada had said, but this time they're all coming as Vaishnavas. You should never give up this place. Whatever condition is Prabhupada in, he is even in quarantine, but still he is preaching. Like our Bhakti Sangha has reached to many devotees and other people during the COVID pandemic. Some of the Calcutta devotees had complained to Srila Prabhupada that the temple was being mismanaged and that due to insufficient income, their diet was inadequate. When Prabhupada had questioned the temple leaders, one devotee had replied, Srila Prabhupada, I was just simply trying to execute your will. Is it my will? Prabhupada had asked, that all the devotees should be disturbed. Prabhupada has settled the differences, arranged for an improved diet, and had even recommended a democratic election of temple officers. But he had also explained that because Krishna consciousness was such an important mission, the devotees should cooperate even if there were discrepancies. The material world is like an ocean, he said that, and there would always be waves which will be disturbing. Prabhupada explains that devotees should work together even though there are some differences and should cooperate each other. During this visit to Calcutta, Prabhupada had spoken of his plans for Mayapur. Naranarayana had built a scaled model of the building ISKCON would construct on a newly acquired property, and Prabhupada had shown it to all his guests and had asked them to help. Seeing Prabhupada's absorption in this project, Giriraj Maharaj had volunteered to help in any way required. It seems the two things you want most, Giriraj Maharaj had said, are for the books to be distributed and to build a temple at Mayapur. Yes, Prabhupada had smiled. Yes, Prabhupada had said, smiling, yes, thank you. Srila Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Now we will see a conversation of Prabhupada with a reporter. The reporter asked Prabhupada, Sir, mine was a very hypothetical question. Suppose 100 pure saintly Krishna conscious people are meditating or discussing together and someone comes along with and drops a bomb. Then Prabhupada replied, those who are Krishna conscious are not afraid of bomb. When they see a bomb coming, they think that Krishna desired the bomb to come. A Krishna conscious person is never afraid of anything. One who has the conception that something can exist outside of Krishna is afraid. On the other hand, one who knows that everything is coming from Krishna had no reason to be afraid. The bomb is coming, he says. Krishna is coming. That is the vision of the devotee. He thinks Krishna want to kill me with a bomb? That is all right. I'll be killed. That is the Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada explains that devotees never fear. They always surrender at the lotus feet of the Lord. When the reporter asked if the Vaishnava would die without fighting, Prabhupada said that the Vaishnava would fight, but only under the direction of Krishna, and he cited Arjuna and Hanuman as examples. He continued to explain Krishna consciousness as the only solution. Prabhupada had great stature among the Indians as a sadhu. Speaking only on the basis of the scriptures, he exhibited full surrender to Lord Krishna. He was above politics and sectarianism. He was fully spiritual and commanded respect. Everyone, regardless of personal philosophies or practices, seemed to accept him as a true representative of Indian culture, a genuine sadhu and guru. The evening Hare Krishna festival was a momentous occasion. Since the location and the hour were ideal and admission was free, the crowd had grown to tens of thousands, many having coming especially to see the young American Vaishnavas. On the fifth evening after Justice Mishra had referred to religion in his introduction, Srila Prabhupada defined the word in his lecture. Religion means constitutional position. In the English dictionary, religion is described as faith, but by Vedic definition, religion cannot be changed like faith, because it is the law given by Lord. Only surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna is dharma. That is Krishna's verdict. One should not have an ulterior motive in approaching God. Why not surrender immediately? Be intelligent. Real religion means to surrender immediately. Why should you wait for many births? We request all of you try to understand this process of Krishna consciousness very seriously. Take to it and you'll become happy. Prabhupada said that if you actually want to advance your nation, India, then you must take to the culture of Krishna consciousness. The Western countries are meant for that purpose, for advancing technology, but you are meant for a different purpose. Your special advantage is that you have been born in the land of Bharatavarsha after many births and after performing many pious activities. India is very poverty stricken. So wherever I go, I'm told that I'm from a very poor country. India advertises this image. Our ministers beg from other countries. We are accepted as a beggar's culture. At the Berkeley University, one Indian student protested the shutting of the Hare Krishna movement. He was the only student to protest. He said, Swamiji, what benefit is made by accepting this Hare Krishna movement? In another place, a girl asked me, Swamiji, what is God? So I asked her, are you Indian? You should be ashamed of being called an Indian because you ask what is God. Although you come from India, the land of God, India is the land where Lord Krishna appeared. So although you may be born Indian, if you have no dharma, what's the difference between you and the animals? In another incident, a heated argument began with a hippie yelling at Srila Prabhupada. Giriraj Maharaj said that Srila Prabhupada was actually using the entire incident to illustrate the process of understanding Bhagavad Gita. After the man left, Prabhupada completed his lecture by stating that one must approach Krishna or Krishna's representative with a submissive attitude by serving and inquiring, not simply just asking some challenging questions. The whole incident had illustrated this point. Now we will see Prabhupada's conversation with the Canadian High Commissioner James George. Mr. George asked Prabhupada, you have attracted so many Canadians and Americans. Prabhupada replied, I have not attracted them. Krishna has attracted them. Hari Hari Bol, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Mr. George asked, is that true? Prabhupada explained, Krishna is all attractive. I am simply presenting the means of being attracted. That is my business. It is similar to the way a magnet attracts iron. If the iron is rusty, however, then magnetic force cannot attract. Therefore, my business is to remove the dirt. This process is Cheto Darpanamarjanam, cleansing the heart. Prabhupada explains that chanting is the main principle to cleanse our heart. After the successful 10-day Pandal festival, 700,000 people had attended. Srila Prabhupada took his disciples on a short excursion to Vrindavana. His preaching tours had taken him to such places as Amritsar, Surat, Indore, Gorakhpur, Allahabad, and Benares, but never to Vrindavana. With so many of his disciples gathered in Delhi for the festival, Prabhupada considered it an opportune time to travel to nearby Vrindavana. I have never been to Vrindavan, but Bhakti Sangha has taken us virtual parikrama every year. Thank you so much to Padmaseki Mataji for the wonderful parikrama that she is doing every year. So Prabhupada and 40 other disciples have used 2 vehicles, and Srila Prabhupada and 4 other devotees were traveling in Mrs. Kamala Bakshi's ambassador car, and 40 other devotees following in a rented bus. Prabhupada directed the driver of his car to a village and into the center of the small town to a sweet water well. Here Prabhupada and his party drank water and took a breakfast of fresh fruit and then continued on their way. Just before reaching Chattikara Road, which leads directly into Vrindavana, Prabhupada's car broke down. Prabhupada was not at all upset about this car breakdown. Tejas Prabhu speaks about this incident. After Prabhupada's car broke down, he rode the rest of the way with the disciples in the rented bus. Our relationship with Prabhupada was very reverential. Although we were in the most intimate situation, staying with him and traveling in a bus with him, Prabhupada never said anything about it. In those days, we were actually very much like a family. Prabhupada knew everyone and everyone knew Prabhupada and would talk to him. But still we were very reverential, just like a family with respect. Although senior devotees are very friendly to us, we should always respect them and never take it as granted. Prabhupada had come to Vrindavana for more than just a pilgrimage. He had come to try and secure land for ISKCON. When in 1967, he had come to Vrindavana from America, he had come to recuperate, but on recovering his health, he had looked for a place in Vrindavana for his disciples. Now we can see that Prabhupada is trying to look for land for his disciples so that they can do their spiritual practice in Vrindavana. The municipality of Vrindavan arranged a formal reception attended by prominent local citizens and sadhus. A spokesman for the city praised Srila Prabhupada and his accomplishments. O great soul, today we, the inhabitants of Vrindavan known as Brajavasis, all combinedly offer our humble welcome to your holiness in this holy place of Vrindavana. And in doing so, we feel very proud. For many years, you stayed in the Radha Damodar temple and worshipped Her Majesty, Srimati Radharani, in a meditative mode, and thus you now have the transcendental vision to deliver the entire world. As proof of your perfection, we can see these foreign devotees before us, and we feel very proud to see how you have transformed them into such pure devotees. Local people glorifying Srila Prabhupada. To speak frankly, we feel a very intimate relationship with you, and we feel perfect satisfaction at this time in the privilege to present you this address of welcome. We are sure that wherever you travel, you must carry with you the impression of Sri Vrindavan Dham. We are certainly sure that through your preaching alone, the transcendental message of Vrindavan will spread all over the world. May you be crowned a success in these noble activities. Then Srila Prabhupada spoke, beginning by explaining how the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is trying to establish Daiva Varnashrama, or a God-conscious social order with universal application. We should consider that Krishna is Hindu. We should not consider that Krishna is Hindu or Indian. Krishna is for all. This Krishna consciousness is Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam. When one becomes free from all designations, he can take to Krishna consciousness. As long as one is Hindu or Muslim or Christian, there is no question of Krishna consciousness. So these boys and girls or ladies and gentlemen who have joined Srila Prabhupada, they had given up their designations. They are no longer Americans or Canadians or Australians. Hari Hari Bol. Prabhupada said, when I started my propaganda in New York, 26 2nd Avenue, that time only half a dozen boys were coming and hearing. That hearing means I was singing, chanting Hare Krishna mantra and reading some verses from Bhagavad Gita, and they were patiently hearing. Because I know if someone patiently hears the holy name of Krishna or about his pastimes, then Srinvatam Swakataha Krishnaha. Krishna purifies him from within. So my condition was that anyone who wants to become my disciple must be free from 4 kinds of sinful activities: illicit connection with women, meat eating and intoxication, gambling. In this way, on this condition, these boys and girls were accepted as my disciples. According to Pancharatrika Vidhi, when they are fairly advanced, they are given the sacred thread, Upanayana Samskara. Following the path and instruction of my Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Goswami Prabhupada. According to Shastra, they should not be considered as coming from families of Mlechas and Yavanas. They should not be considered like that because they are now purified. Prabhupada continued explaining the holy names, power to elevate anymore, regardless of birth, and he cited Haridas Thakur, who, despite his Mohammedan birth, was accepted as the Acharya of the chanting the holy name. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Here Srila Prabhupada talks about the luxurious life is accepted for Krishna's service, but should not be attached to that luxurious life. Let us see the discussion about it. My disciples are giving me residential quarters, even a governor could not imagine. So I remember the kind of luxurious apartment where I had the opportunity to lie down on one night. But they, my disciples, are giving me all this. So we cannot reject them. We cannot reject that. Because that is a standard of living in America. You cannot say, no, I shall not lie down in this nice apartment. I shall lie down in the street. I'm a sannyasi, then nobody will respect me. There in America, the standard of living is like that. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says that we should not be attached to that. But for the service of Krishna, if you have to use such things, you should receive it. People are engaged in the service of Maya, but we want to engage everything in the service of the Lord. That is the Krishna consciousness movement. Our attachment should be only for Krishna, and for Krishna's service, we cannot accept anything. That is the Krishna conscious movement. Prabhupada concluded his address by asking for land. He wanted to establish a temple for his society in Vrindavan. Afterward, a Mr. S, a motor parts salesman and resident of Vrindavana, offered Prabhupada a plot of land his family had been saving for some worthy religious purpose. While accepting Srila Prabhupada's foreign disciples as devotees, many Vrindavan residents nevertheless felt reluctant to accept the foreign Vaishnavas as Brahmanas, Sannyasis, and Pujaris. This misunderstanding was due to a traditional Hindu concept: only those who born in the caste Brahmana families could become Brahmanas. We had already seen example of Srila Haridas Thakur. Although he was born in a Muslim family, he became the Namacharya. We can see how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Srila Prabhupada, following Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission in giving Krishna to everyone, regardless of caste, sex, or nationality. Prabhupada, however, followed exactly in the footsteps of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who had freely accepted anyone regardless of sex or social position. When in the year 1932, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had led more than 1,000 followers in a Vrindavana pilgrimage, certain prideful caste Brahmanas had denied the pilgrims entry into the temples. The pilgrims had been harassed by rock throwers and boycotted by shopkeepers. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had then met with Brahmanas of Vrindavan and had scripturally proved to them that the soul, being transcendental, was free from designation, and that anyone who became a Vaishnava automatically qualified as a Brahmana. The prejudices, however, had remained. Prabhupada also followed Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in denying that the Goswami title could be inherited. Goswami meant one who controlled the senses, and the title could not be adopted simply because one was born in the family of so-called Goswamis. Prabhupada always gives an example of doctor's son cannot become doctor just like that. He has to get a degree and he has to practice. Prabhupada therefore opposed the caste Goswamis' ideas of birthright. The land acquired was in Raman Reti, and Prabhupada noted that the property on the outskirts of Vrindavan was located on busy Chettikara Road, a main thoroughfare into Vrindavana and a traffic route to Agra and the Taj Mahal. The land was also adjacent to the Vrindavana Parikrama path, where millions of pilgrims passed annually, circumambulating Vrindavana and visiting its temples and holy places. Raman Reti literally means charming sand, was mostly forest with a few ashramas and abandoned fields, celebrated as a favorite spot of Krishna's, where he and his brother Balarama and their cowherd boyfriends had played 5,000 years ago. Raman Reti abounded in the transcendental love of God, which is the special atmosphere of Vrindavana. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Meanwhile, Prabhupada took his disciples on a pilgrimage to many of the important holy places of Vrindavana: Varsana Dham, the birthplace of Srimati Radharani; Gokula, the place of Krishna's earliest pastime; Radhakunda, Govardhana, and Vrindavan's major temples. At Govardhana Hill, Prabhupada told the devotees not to step on Govardhana Hill or pick up any of the rocks. Sri Radhakunda ki jai, Sri Giri Govardhan ki jai. Prabhupada strictly instructed his devotees not to step on the Govardhan Hill or pick up any of the rocks. At Varsana Dham, the birthplace of Radharani, the devotees carried Prabhupada on a palanquin up the many steep steps to the temple. On the top of the hill, he looked toward a distant hill. In each holy place, Prabhupada would sit down, hold a kirtana, and come before the deity and offer obeisances. Then he would briefly describe the pastimes of Krishna related with the particular place. Prabhupada then took his group to the place behind the Yamuna, where Krishna had shown his mother all the universes within his mouth. Touching the water, Prabhupada said, "It is too cold for an old man like me, but you can take a bath. I'll put a few drops on my head." Prabhupada did, however, make a point of going with his disciples to visit the Radha Damodar temple, where he had lived for several years, writing Srimad Bhagavatam and Back to Godhead magazine before going to America in the year 1965. Prabhupada likes the Radha Damodar temple so much. Here is another incident where we can see Srila Prabhupada taking care of his disciples. Here is a conversation with Yamuna Mataji. Yamuna Devi thus speaks about Srila Prabhupada. His divine grace was very frequently giving indication of how much he wanted his rooms at Radha Damodar maintained nicely. He was extremely fond of his quarters here. One night during his stay in Saraf Bhavan, he agreed that he would stay for 124-hour period within his rooms at the Radha Damodar temple. It was a very exciting event for all of us to look forward to. He selected 3 or 4 men to accompany him to spend the night there at Radha Damodar temple. Suddenly, very much to my surprise, the wooden shutters burst open and a shaft of light filled a small corner of the courtyard. Prabhupada stood in his room under one bare light bulb. When he saw me, he asked, "How have you gotten here?" I said that I had walked. "Oh, this is not good," Prabhupada said. "It is very, very dangerous in the street. There are so many wild dogs and there are dacoits. In this quarter, a man can kill even for a small water pot." And so there was some chastisement from Prabhupada on the one hand, but on the other hand, he seems pleased. Then the time was around 4 o'clock. Other pilgrims were starting to filter into attend the morning Aarti program. Prabhupada came out where we were chanting and he said that this corner at Radha Damodar temple was just like the hub of the wheel of the spiritual world. It was the center. He requested that his rooms will always be well maintained and that they be cleansed daily. We'll see here the transcendental meeting of Radhanath Swami Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. Radhanath Swami Maharaj speaks here. I had only met Srila Prabhupada briefly in Bombay, and then I had gone alone to live in Vrindavan. I had lived there about 6 months with the local people, and it was there I got real attached to Krishna consciousness. I used to live on the bank of the river with all the Babajis, a very simple life. I know it was just by that initial contact with Prabhupada that seed was planted. One day, a big bus full of American devotees having a kirtana pulled into Vrindavan. And I was thinking, oh, here they are again. The first thing I asked was, is Prabhupada coming? And they said, yes, Prabhupada is here. He will be speaking tomorrow morning. I was already attracted to a lot of gurus in Vrindavan, Prabhupada's godbrothers and also devotees from other sampradayas. But on the morning when I came for the Bhagavatam class and heard Prabhupada chanting, Jaya Radha Madhava, I just sat there and listened. I had never seen anyone with such a quality of love for Krishna. All the great people I had met in India became insignificant when I saw Prabhupada chanting Jaya Radha Madhava. He was so serious and grave, and the quality of his devotion was so intense. I just couldn't believe it. He kept looking over at me every now and then, kind of nodding because I guess he remembered me from Bombay. Then he spoke and he was glorifying Vrindavan so nicely. He was talking about how wonderful Vrindavan is, how spiritual the atmosphere is, and he was talking about how careful the devotees must be to take advantage of the atmosphere. From the day I started thinking, this is my Guru Maharaj, just because of the way he spoke. His lecture had been so precise and inclusive that it has encompassed every other philosophy and every other teacher I had ever heard. I could see also that Prabhupada's example was pure, and I could see his disciples were actually giving up sinful life. I used to go to his darshans every day, although I was still living on the bank of Yamuna. All the people of Vrindavan were glorifying Prabhupada. They were so proud of him because the people of Vrindavan are attached to Vrindavan. They love Krishna and they love Vrindavan because Vrindavan is the place where Krishna lives. That's their mood. They worship the land of Vrindavan because they would tell me they appreciated Prabhupada. Most of them would call him Swami Bhaktivedanta. They would say he is the greatest saint because he is bringing Vrindavan all over the world. He is making the glories of Vrindavan known to the whole world. Then one day Prabhupada and disciples went to an ashrama in Raman Reti. I got there late. Just as Prabhupada was leaving, he was walking the last 20 yards or so to his taxi, and many Brajavasis were offering their full dandavats in the road. I felt very insignificant, another member of the crowd. And as Prabhupada walked by me, I offered my full obeisance also. Where Radhanath Swami Maharaj was feeling so happy, taking blessings from Srila Prabhupada. When I lifted my head to get up, however, I saw Prabhupada's feet were right there in front of me. I thought, oh my God, Prabhupada is standing here. I very slowly looked up and Prabhupada was just standing there looking right at me. He looked me in the eyes for a couple of seconds and then said, so how long have you been here in Vrindavan? I said, about 6 months, Srila Prabhupada. He just looked at me again and he was in a very serious mood very compassionate, gazing into my eyes. He nodded his head and said, "Do you like it here?" I said, "This is the most wonderful place I have ever been in my life." Then all of a sudden, his serious expression just blossomed into a most beautiful smile. His eyes were glistening radiantly, and he looked at me for about 5 or 10 seconds. It seemed like a real long time. I couldn't believe the mercy he was giving to me. And then he just replied, "That is very nice. Vrindavan is a wonderful place." And he walked on. This was very special for me because most of the devotees were always telling me I was in Maya for staying in Vrindavan. And because I was kind of attached to my own program in Vrindavan, I was feeling that the devotees didn't understand, and I was upset with them, thinking that they didn't appreciate the atmosphere. But Prabhupada's words alleviated all my anxieties toward the Hare Krishna movement. It was the most special personal contact. It wasn't that Prabhupada was saying, it was his personal transcendental concern for me. So then I went to his classes every day and all the darshans, and there was no doubt in my mind. He very much convinced me on every level of Krishna consciousness. We see that here mercy is flowing from Prabhupada to Radhanath Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Radhanath Maharaj ki jai. When Prabhupada left, the devotees told me that I should join and go on parikrama with them all around India. And they said that Prabhupada had personally invited me to come. I was unbelievably appreciative that Prabhupada was so merciful. But at the same time, I was very attached to Vrindavan. I told them I just wanted to stay here, and if they ever came back, I would serve Prabhupada here. But that I didn't want to leave Vrindavan. Soon after that, my visa expired. So I had to leave the country. But before I left, the people of Vrindavan, especially the Babajis, were telling me that Swami Bhaktivedanta had established New Vrindavan in the West. They said, if you have to leave Vrindavan, you should go to New Vrindavan. So whatever you do, don't leave Vrindavan. New Vrindavan and Old Vrindavan are the same because Swami Bhaktivedanta has created Vrindavan in the West. They said it with great pride. So I left for New Vrindavan. Even myself, I did not visit India for several years. So I'm fortunate that because of Prabhupada's blessing, I'll be visiting the New Vrindavan next week with my family. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. New Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Hari Hari Bol. Prabhupada trained his disciples in the etiquette of living in Vrindavan Dham. In the holy Dham, he said, if one of my disciples drinks from a jug incorrectly and he contaminates the jug, everyone will notice it. Don't be criticized for this uncleanliness or I will be criticized. It is the duty of the disciple to follow these etiquette habits very austerely. I am putting so much energy into this party in India because I want to train you how to live here. Prabhupada wrote his disciples in the West of his successful tour of Vrindavan. I am currently in Vrindavan with a party of 40 devotees, and we are having daily parikrama of the holy places. We shall return to Delhi tomorrow by coach. The officials and residents of Vrindavan have greeted us very nicely, and they are simply astounded to see our chanting with great jubilation through the city streets. The mayor has publicly proclaimed that I have done something wonderful, and practically speaking, they realized that before I went to Western countries, no one knew they knew about Vrindavan. Now hundreds of visitors and hippies from your country come here to see Krishna's place. The Vrindavan devotees have understood that Vrindavan is now world famous due to my preaching work. So they're all very much appreciating their hometown Swamiji. We can see here that how Srila Prabhupada was very keen to teach his Vaishnava etiquette, the Vaishnava etiquette to his disciples. And we see that how Srila Prabhupada is giving his travel updates to his Western devotees by his letters. Delhi, December 1st in the year 1971. On his second day in the city, he visited the American ambassador to India, Mr. Kenneth Keating, at the American embassy. Srila Prabhupada explained to Mr. Keating the basic philosophy of Krishna consciousness, the distinction between the material body and the self or soul living within the body. You have got this striped coat, he told Mr. Keating, but I cannot address you, Mr. Striped Coat. Yet we are actually being addressed like that. We are identifying with this body. And Prabhupada explained the soul's transmigration through the 84 lakh species. That is very interesting. Mr. Keating commented, I believe in the transmigration of the soul. That is, it is a fact, Prabhupada said, just like the child is transmigrating from one body to another, he indicated that. In the same way, when I give up this body, I will transmigrate to another body. This is the science. I see the American boys and girls, although coming from very rich and respectable families, are turning to hippies. In spite of your arrangement for very big universities, they are becoming frustrated. They are no longer satisfied to live in material opulence. So the present position of human society is dangerous because everyone is feeling dissatisfied and confused. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada said. Just like you have a pearl necklace and it is strung on a thread, so all the pearls are resting on that thread. Everyone is resting in God. Not only good men should be resting on the thread. The definition given by the Vedanta Sutra is perfect. Janmadasya ataha. God is the origin of or source of everything. What do you say? I am very impressed, Mr. Keating replied. Another definition of God, Prabhupada continued, is that he is all attractive. Everyone has the attractive features of opulence, strength, fame, beauty, renunciation, and wisdom to some extent. You are an ambassador, a representative of your country, so you are attractive. Sometimes somebody comes to me, let me see the Swamiji. So this attractiveness everyone possesses. But God means he who has got all attractiveness in full. That evening, Prabhupada wrote one of his disciples about the meeting. You may be pleased to know that this morning I met here in Delhi with your American ambassador to India, Mr. Kenneth Keating. He has got very good respect for our movement, and he has promised to help me to arrange a meeting with your president when I shall return to your country, perhaps in the late spring. I have requested him to help this movement, and that help will save your country from great danger by turning hippies into happies. Let us see what can be done. Prabhupada was not alarmed. War was not the only ugly reality. Birth, death, old age, disease, and so many other material sufferings were inevitable. War or no war. Prabhupada continued to follow the news. However, in some days, Shyamasundara would purchase for him 3 or 4 different newspapers. After a few days at the Birla Mandir, Prabhupada and his party moved to a Dharmashala in the Kamala Nagar district of Old Delhi. There, Prabhupada delivered what the devotees later referred to as the blackout lectures during the India-Pakistan war. While these black-painted newspapers and blankets covered the windows and combat jets flew overhead, Prabhupada would speak by candlelight to his disciples. The propensity to fight is very strong in this age of Kali, he said, and the population is becoming so sinful that they are trying to accumulate atomic weaponry for ultimate destruction of humanity. Sometimes Prabhupada would ask a disciple to speak to the group also. No guests were present, since during blackouts, no one could walk the streets, and on some nights, the police pounded on the door, demanding the devotees extinguish even their candles. Due to the war in India, Prabhupada wrote in a letter, our programs here have been reduced, and there is every night a blackout, not only in Delhi, but in the other parts of India. His disciples were encountering difficulties in their preaching attempts. In Mayapur, the government had ordered the devotees to leave the area because of its close proximity to Bangladesh. As Prabhupada had predicted, however, the war did not last long. On December 17th, Prabhupada read the headlines of the Indian Express newspaper. Niazi surrenders. Bangladesh is free. India decides on unilateral ceasefire in West. Prabhupada was joyous. He told the devotees confidentially that the reason the war had ended so quickly was because of their massive Sankirtana Yagna at the Pandal a month earlier. On the very same page that had announced India's victory, however, another headline read, Prime Minister blames USA for war. Indira Gandhi was blaming President Nixon for the war. The American devotees tense as they walked the streets, sensing the Indians' mistrust and daily newspaper propaganda only worsened the condition. There is a great propaganda now against America and India. Prabhupada wrote, due to the country's stand against India and the war with Pakistan, Delhi was the seat of much political agitation, and Prabhupada decided to relocate the devotees who were there within him. although his disciples were peaceful and far from being politically active, he sent some to Calcutta, while others accompanied him to Bombay. International politics would not stop the oncoming wave of Lord Chaitanya's movement. So here is a brief summary of the Prabhupada's journey in the year 1971. So he's from first he started from Calcutta in the March 1971, then to London, and in between he went to Africa, and then from Africa his first stop was Bombay, and then again he went back to New Delhi in the November, and then he visited Vrindavan and all the holy dhamas and the pilgrimage, and then finally again he was back to Delhi. So this is an inspiring chapter. Like I was able to learn a lot of things from this chapter. Like continuously traveling, even in the age of 70, Prabhupada was continuously traveling without rest. So this is very inspiring to me, and I'm very appreciative to I'm very thankful to the author, Sri Sattvarupa Goswami, Sri Sattvarupa Dasa Goswami, for combining this chapter in this book. Thank you very much, and I would like to take any questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. What a beautiful, beautiful class, Prabhu. Thank you so much. You are like a seasoned speaker. Very, very grateful to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yes, Mataji.
Really liked a couple of things that you were mentioning about the definition of religion. How generally it's called, it is defined as a faith, but however, Srila Prabhupada says it is actually surrender, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Parityaja, that is the highest religion. Sharanam Raja, so that is the highest religion. And the second thing that I really loved in this entire series that you covered was the interaction with Ravana Maharaj. Very beautiful, Prabhu, and the entire narration was very lively, and we were connecting to so many things that's happening even within Bhakti Sangha. And thank you so much, Prabhu. The entire Vrindavan Yatra with Prabhupada was very, very beautiful. Thank you for covering this.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji, for giving the opportunity to speak in the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam. Very, very beautiful class. In between 5-10 minutes, I just went to attend kids and then missed it, but it was so lively. I couldn't move for a second, especially everything about Vrindavan and Radhanath Maharaj, and so many nice pastimes, so many nice, beautiful, simple and beautiful lessons. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Very happy to see you on the call. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, I see your the virtual parikrama every year that you present. So even though we are not able to go to India for several years, so we get the darshan from your parikrama. That is very nice, Mataji.
Yeah, and Prabhu was mentioning about it in the class as well. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hari Bol, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. What a wonderful class, Prabhu. You are completely involved in Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta. I can see your love for Srila Prabhupada. Very nice, Prabhu.
I mean, I see that you used to read before, right? So from your only I got inspiration, Mataji. So,
no, Prabhu. I'm not at all qualified to get that. But thank you so much, Prabhu, for coming on the call and giving very nice summary of this chapter, Prabhu. Very nice to have you on the call. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
It's all devotees' blessings and wishes. So it's all from the Bhakti Sangha group devotees. Inspired me to speak in the class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Bala Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Prabhuji, for coming and presenting. It was really wonderful. Very beautifully, every time you would incorporate, okay, yes, in Bhakti Sangha we did this, in Bhakti Sangha we did that. So you have been glorifying, although we don't see you so often in the classes, and Vinita Mataji is always there. It is, it has just been so wonderful. The way you glorify the services that Mataji and the group has been performing. Thank you so much for this very beautiful session, Prabhuji. And also love the slides. The slides were also very informative, and you had very beautiful pictures in it. Please come again, Prabhuji. Really looking forward to hearing more from you, and very happy to hear that you're going to New Vrindavan next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, always the Bhakti Sangha classes when they are going on. So yeah, well, it's there, but I mean, I don't attend like in front of the hall, but from the side while I'm doing my work.
You're always listening.
Yeah,
Yes.
I always listen, and especially I like the kids class, the Bhakti Sangha kids class. So I don't know a lot of adult devotees, but I know a lot of the kids devotees, a lot of them. Like Sudevi, I see every day joining Sudevi. Yeah, all the kids are inspiring to me. Like
Balurunda.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Yeah. But
The Prabhuji is that perfect better half. His better half is sitting in the call always, and Prabhuji is getting all the knowledge just like that, just from her.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Wonderful session, Prabhu. Very beautifully you presented that chapter. And I really like the enthusiasm with which you were, narrating, like in between you were saying, Haribo, Shivindavan Dham ki jai, Radha Kund ki jai. So that was so wonderful, Prabhu. And even I'll second with all the devotees who said that, yes, you are just a backbencher listener, but backbencher students are always the best students in the class. So you are not always on the call, but just behind the scenes, you hear the call, you get immersed in this Krishna Katha. That's so wonderful, Prabhu. And I really request you, hearing your class, that you should always come at least for Bhagavatam class. That gives us so much of purification. And I'm pretty sure, like today when you presented, you must have gone deep into that chapter, That was your, like, listening is okay, reading is okay, but when you present it in front of somebody else, then we really go deep into it. And I could feel that in you. So thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for coming on the call, for taking up this effort, and hope to see you someday in Bhagavatam class, giving Bhagavatam class. So,
yes, Mataji, thank you for the opportunity. And Mataji, you yourself and Prabhuji, Ajay Govind Prabhuji, yeah, so you are also like inspiration because we met in December also. And also I joined the Ajay Govind Prabhu's class also. And those are very inspiring too. So, so from that only we got inspiration. I got inspiration, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for remembering me, and thank you for such a wonderful.
Oh, okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, you are there. Thank you, Prabhu.
I heard my name.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
So I'm nothing, Prabhu. I'm just repeating.
No, you're nothing, but I'm still lower than that, right, Prabhu? So that's why I learned something from you, right? So,
No, Prabhu, nothing like
Prabhu.
Please come often, Prabhu. Really.
Yes.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranams.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ji Bal Vandra, Vrindas Prabhuji, Vrindas father, Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev की जय, गोपीनाथ की जय। प्रभु जी आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से प्रभुपाद अमृता वो कहते हैं ना कि भाव से सीधा वृंदावन धाम की जय, श्री श्याम कुंड श्री राधा कुंड की जय, एंड एच गिरिराज महाराज एंड एच राधानाथ महाराज, हाउ दे वर्क हार्ड। एंड जब राधानाथ महाराज सीधा वृंदावन धाम में थे तो ही इज डूइंग जपा एंड गेटिंग एसोसिएशन ऑफ ऑल ब्रिजवासी एंड सिटिंग नियर श्रीमती श्री यमुना महारानी। एंड देन श्रील प्रभुपाद को जब वो दंडवत कर रहे थे, प्रभुपाद जब वो ऐसे ऊपर देखा तो प्रभुपाद स्टिल देयर। एंड अभी आपने क्या सोचा? एंड द बस इज कमिंग विथ फुल वैष्णव, अमेरिकन वैष्णवा, एंड इन द बीच में आप सीधा वृंदावन धाम की जय, श्री श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड श्री चंदीपुरा धाम की जय। दैट इज टच टू हार्ट। प्रभु जी टेक अस इन सीधा वृंदावन धाम। I take only 1.5 minutes. It's difficult to explain all the points, Prabhuji. I try my best. And all the slides, Prabhuji, that is amazing. And आपका मूड था प्रभुजी, ऐसे नहीं कि आप श्रील प्रभुपाद आप वो मूड आपने क्रिएट किया था टू एंटर इन सीधाम वृंदावन धाम. You explained about Srila Prabhupada Amruta, Srila Prabhupada traveling Siddham Vrindavan Dham, then that Chhattikara रोड श्रीधाम वृंदावन धाम में जब उनकी कार ब्रेक हो जाती है, एंड देन प्रभुपाद विल सिट इन द bus, and everyone in new and for new devotee it's difficult, but Prabhupada के लिए सब new devotee थे. He is adjust with all Vaishnava. Senior devotee we should give them we should give a respect to senior Vaishnava. Then Vrajvasi holy place of Sridham Vrindavan Dham are given so much respect to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada stay in Sri Radha Damodar temple by Srimati Sri Radha Rani Mercy, and वो वहाँ से वो सनातन गोस्वामी और रूप गोस्वामी की समाधि देखते थे, and वो श्री भागवतम के 3 कैंटो वहाँ लिखे थे, and then local people give us so much respect to Srila Prabhupada. Carry Srila Prabhupada जहाँ भी जाते थे all over the world, he carries Siddham Vrindavan Dham to all over the world. Krishna is far all of we can take Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada said we should take Krishna consciousness very seriously. यही जन्म में Krishna consciousness ले ऐसा उनका उद्देश्य था, ऐसे वो प्रीच करते थे. न्यूयॉर्क में आधे डजन there is only 6-8 वैष्णव थे, but they hear Sri Bhagavatam so sincerely and they become a sincere Vaishnava. And you explained about Upanayana Sanskara and Acharya Gan and Haridas Thakur. Still Haridas Thakur ki jai. Haridas Thakur is a Muslim, but still he take a उन्होंने बहुत सिंसियरली जपा नाम वो किया था. And you explain about the life of Rupa Goswami and service of our mood to serve Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, Sri Radha Gopinath. When we hear H.H. Jayapataka Maharaj, H.H. Radhanath Maharaj, H.H. Giriraj Maharaj, कि जब वो सीधा मायापुर धाम बन रहा था, when it's in under construction, that time H.H. Giriraj Maharaj give a when Siddha Mayapur is in under construction, that time he made a project plan, and उनका बहुत कि हम बुक पे श्रील प्रभुपाद की लिखी हुई बुक पे ज्यादा फोकस करें. एंड हरिदास ठाकुर एंड नाम आचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर मुस्लिम फैमिली से थे, बट स्टिल ही सो सिंसियर. एंड जब फॉरेन वैष्णव को और पुजारी और ब्राह्मण के रूप में एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया जाता था, तब श्रील प्रभुपाद बहुत पेशेंसली ही प्रीच श्री भागवतम भक्ति सिद्धांत, एंड वो he follow the instruction of his Gurudev Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who and the Goswami means we control our all senses, and Sri Radha Raman Reti Jatipura Siddham Vrindavan Dham Parikrama, the forest fabric spot, and Lord Krishna in Siddham Vrindavan, and in the middle he said Siddham Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sisi Balsana Dham ki jai, Sisi Govardhan Dham ki jai. That is touch to heart. And Prabhupada likes Sri Radha Damodar temple too much and staying there. Srimati Sri Yamuna Maharani taking bath, and Yamuna Devi Dasi also staying in Radha Damodar temple. वहां पे तभी तो जब श्रील प्रभुपाद थे तभी बहुत श्री राधा रमन रेती के आगे वाइल्ड डॉग्स एंड वाइल्ड एनिमल आते थे, बट स्टिल प्रभुपाद इज स्टेइंग देयर श्री राधा रमन रेती श्री राधा दामोदर टेम्पल एंड सेंटर ऑफ देन आई ऑलरेडी एक्सप्लेन अबाउट राधानाथ महाराज. सो प्रभुपाद determination is so strong that at the age of 70 he came abroad and he create Siddham Vrindavan Dham all over the world, and Sisi New Vrindavan Dham. You explained about Sisi New Vrindavan Dham in abroad. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Koti dhanvat pranam to your seva. Sri Srila Prabhupada Amruta ki jai. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for taking us in a dham pray for us that this Kartik month qualified to enter in Siddham Vrindavan Dham. Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam to you, Bal Vrinda and Bal Vrinda's mother. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this is Bala Vrinda. I really like your class, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you, वृंदा गोपिका माता जी. Thank you very much. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपको. हर एक क्लास जब इधर चलता है ना जो भक्ति संघ में, तो अंत में जो आप जो समराइज करते हो ना, तो वो मिस नहीं होंगे. मतलब बहुत क्लासेस में सुना है आपका जो सिनॉप्सिस जो समरी आप बोलते हैं ना, बहुत अच्छा है. तो उसके बिना वो क्लास एंड होता है. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपको. मेनी थैंक यू माता जी. मेनी प्रणाम्स टू यू.
प्रभु जी, हमें आपका सीसी भागवतम में भी एसोसिएशन चाहिए एंड सीसी चैतन्य चरणामृत और सीसी चैतन्य भागवत में भी आपका एसोसिएशन चाहिए. बाय द मर्सी ऑफ ऑल भक्ति संघ टीचर्स. थैंक यू प्रभु. कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम.
Yeah, by all the devotees' blessings and wishes, yeah, I will improve my reading scriptures, and then I will give a class sometime. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for encouraging my Prabhuji and giving the opportunity. And thank you so much, Bhakti Sangha, because my Prabhu is always very shy to speak out. But then because of Bhakti Sangha, it came true that he has spoken something for Srila Prabhupada. I'm really, really grateful to Bhakti Sangha. Thank you so much for encouraging him. I know we are not qualified, but you devotees give an opportunity for us to speak. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I loved the class very much. I liked all the points and all the pictures, and it was very nice, Prabhuji, and I liked everything. Prabhuji, it's saying that like Prabhupada did not allow his disciples to take Shaligram Shilas from the Govardhan. So devotees take Shaligram Shilas from Govardhan to worship at home. So why Prabhupada did not allow his disciples to take the Shaligram Shilas from Govardhan?
As far as I know, maybe I think when you take something, you have to put that equal amount of gold or something like that. That's what I heard. But if any other senior devotees can shed some light on that question, I would appreciate it.
Basically, Prabhu, purity is not there, so that's why Srila Prabhupada would not allow, because most of them are foreign devotees, so they don't know the etiquette. So that is the reason. I understand. Maybe others can comment on it.
Okay, thank you, Sudevi.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, can I add one point by your permission?
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. From Siddham Vrindavan Dham, हम सीसी गोवर्धन लीला से कुछ भी नहीं ले सकते, बिकॉज वहां से हम बाहर नहीं ले जा सकते. ऐसा मैंने एच राधा गोविंद महाराज एंड एच इंद्र धनु महाराज से सुना था. somebody Vrijvasi will give a gift of सीसी गोवर्धना और सीसी शालिग्राम शिला, then it is good. पर हम अपने आप से नहीं ले जा सके, whether it's Indian or whether it's American, because we are not qualified to take a Siddham Vrindavan Dham to our home. But if it is coming in a gift, then हम लेके आ सकते हैं. That much I know, Prabhuji. But why not taking that reason, maybe Chikitida Sundari Mataji will explain.
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you, Sudevi. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Bala Prabhu. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Anybody would like to share their realizations for today's summary? Okay, or else, so Bala Prabhu, with your permission and with devotees' permission, we would like to end the session. Before ending, I would like to again
thank you sincerely for coming on the call and giving this beautiful summary. And we would like to see ahead in the future also. So with this, I would like to pay my obeisances. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripāsindhubhya patitānām pāvanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Mama Bhairat Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Prabhupada Lilamrta ki jai, Prabhu ki jai.
All
Thank you
glory
so much,
to all
Prabhuji.
devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice class it was.
Hare Krishna.
Very, very nice.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
all. I'll be ending here.